The morning sun streamed through the large windows of Frogmore Cottage as Meghan carefully adjusted the soft blue blanket around her sleeping son. Baby Archie, barely 6 months old, lay peacefully in his bassinet, his tiny fingers curled into perfect little fists. The cottage had become their sanctuary, a place where the young family could experience genuine moments away from the constant scrutiny of the public eye. Harry sat nearby in the comfortable armchair, still wearing his morning pajamas, watching his wife tend to their precious child. The transformation in his life seemed almost surreal. Just 2 years ago, he had been the carefree prince known for his military service and charitable work. Now, he was a devoted father, completely enchanted by every small sound and movement their baby made. "He has your nose," Meghan whispered softly, not wanting to disturb Archie's peaceful slumber. She traced a gentle finger along the baby's tiny features, marveling at how perfectly formed he was. The morning routine had become sacred to them both. These quiet hours before the day's responsibilities began were when they felt most like a normal family. The autumn leaves were beginning to change color around Frogmore Cottage when Archie reached his 8-month milestone. His personality had blossomed remarkably, and every day brought new discoveries for his devoted parents. Harry had become fascinated by his son's developing motor skills, spending hours on the nursery floor encouraging Archie's attempts at crawling. "Come on, little man." Harry Winter had settled over Frogmore Cottage when Archie celebrated his first birthday, though the actual celebration was an intimate affair involving only his parents and a handful of close family members. The transformation from the tiny newborn Harry and Meghan had brought home nearly a year earlier was remarkable. Archie had grown into an active, curious toddler whose personality shone brightly in every interaction. The birthday celebration itself reflected the family's values and priorities. Instead of an elaborate party, they chose to spend the day engaging in activities that brought Archie genuine joy. Harry had constructed a small obstacle course in the living room using cushions and soft toys, creating a safe environment where Archie could practice his newly developed walking skills. Meghan had spent weeks preparing for this milestone, creating a photo album that documented Archie's first year in beautiful detail. Every month had been represented with carefully selected images that captured his growth and development. The album had become a treasured possession, something she knew they would look at together for years to come. The cottage had been decorated with handmade banners and decorations that Meghan had crafted herself. She had chosen to avoid commercial party supplies, instead creating personalized touches that reflected their family's unique style. Harry had contributed by building a wooden toy box that would serve as both a birthday gift and a practical addition to Archie's increasingly extensive toy collection. Archie's first steps had occurred just 2 weeks before his birthday, a moment that both parents had been fortunate enough to witness together. Harry had been holding his hands, slowly backing away while Meghan encouraged from across the room. When Archie finally let go and took 3 wobbly steps toward his mother, the joy and pride in the room were overwhelming. The milestone had marked a new phase in their parenting journey. Archie's mobility had transformed their daily routines completely. The cottage had been thoroughly child-proofed, with safety gates installed and sharp corners covered. Harry had become an expert at anticipating potential hazards, while Meghan had developed an uncanny ability to predict which direction Archie might wander next. Their son's verbal development had also accelerated dramatically. While his vocabulary was still limited, he had begun experimenting with sounds that resembled words. His attempts to say mama and dada had become a source of constant entertainment and competition between his parents, each secretly hoping to hear their name pronounced clearly first. The winter months had brought new challenges and opportunities for family bonding. Unable to spend as much time outdoors, they had created indoor adventures that kept Archie engaged and stimulated. Harry had become skilled at constructing elaborate blanket forts, while Meghan had introduced musical activities that helped develop Archie's coordination and rhythm. Reading time had evolved into interactive storytelling sessions where all 3 family members participated. Harry had begun creating voices for different characters, while Meghan would add sound effects and gestures that kept Archie captivated. Their son had developed preferences for certain books and would bring his favorites to his parents throughout the day. The approach to mealtimes had also changed significantly as Archie became more independent. He had begun feeding himself with increasing skill, though this development had resulted in considerably more mess than his parents had anticipated. They had learned to embrace the chaos, understanding that his messy exploration of food was an important part of his development. Archie's relationship with his extended family had continued to strengthen through regular video calls and carefully planned visits. His grandparents had become important figures in his life, and he had learned to recognize their voices and faces. The technology that allowed these connections had become invaluable for maintaining family bonds across distances. The couple had also begun introducing Archie to charitable work in age-appropriate ways. They would bring him along when they visited local organizations, allowing him to observe their community involvement. While he was too young to understand the significance of these activities, they hoped to instill values of service and compassion from an early age. Bath time had become an elaborate nightly ritual involving numerous toys, bubbles, and games designed to make the experience enjoyable for their increasingly active child. Harry had perfected the art of keeping Archie entertained, while Meghan managed the practical aspects of washing and hair care. The bathroom often echoed with laughter and splashing sounds that neighbors could probably hear. The nursery had undergone another transformation to accommodate Archie's changing needs. The crib had been converted to a toddler bed, and the space had been reorganized to provide more room for active play. Books had been moved to lower shelves where Archie could access them independently, encouraging his growing interest in reading. Planning for the future had become an important focus for Harry and Meghan as they watched their son develop into his own unique person. They had begun discussing education options, travel opportunities, and ways to expose Archie to different cultures and experiences. Their goal was to provide him with a well-rounded foundation that would prepare him for whatever path he chose in life. The couple had also started documenting family traditions they wanted to establish for years to come. Sunday morning pancakes had become a weekly celebration, with Harry manning the stove while Meghan and Archie provided entertainment and moral support. These simple moments had become some of their most treasured family memories. Photography had continued to play an important role in preserving these precious times. Meghan's skill with a camera had improved dramatically, and she had created beautiful documentation of Archie's development. The walls of their home displayed carefully curated images that told the story of their first year as a family. As winter began to give way to spring, the family looked forward to new adventures and experiences they could share. Archie's increased mobility and communication skills opened up possibilities for more complex activities and outings. They had already begun planning garden projects they could work on together once the weather improved. The growth and changes they had witnessed in Archie during his first year had been matched by their own development as parents. Harry and Meghan had discovered reserves of patience, creativity, and love they hadn't known they possessed. Every challenge had been met with determination to provide their son with the best possible foundation for his life. Their commitment to privacy and protecting Archie's childhood had remained unwavering throughout his first year. They had successfully created an environment where he could develop naturally, without the pressure of constant public scrutiny. This decision had allowed them to focus entirely on his needs and their family's happiness. As they looked toward the future, Harry and Meghan felt confident in the foundation they had built during Archie's first year. The love, stability, and values they had provided would serve as the cornerstone for whatever adventures lay ahead for their remarkable little family, would say, positioning himself a few feet away with Archie's favorite stuffed elephant. The baby had developed an attachment to the plush toy, which had been a gift from Harry's grandmother, the Queen. The elephant's soft gray fabric had become worn from countless cuddles and had accompanied Archie on every adventure around the cottage. Meghan watched from the doorway, her heart swelling with pride as she observed the special bond developing between father and son. Harry's patience seemed infinite when it came to Archie. He would repeat the same encouraging words over and over, celebrating every small movement as if it were the greatest achievement in the world. The nursery had evolved significantly since Archie's birth. What had once been a peaceful space for a sleeping newborn had transformed into an active play area filled with age-appropriate toys and books. Meghan had researched child development extensively, ensuring that every item in the room would stimulate Archie's growing curiosity and learning abilities. Their morning routine had adapted to accommodate Archie's increased alertness and longer periods of wakefulness. Instead of quiet observation, they now engaged in interactive play sessions that left all three of them laughing and energized. Harry had discovered a talent for making silly faces that could turn Archie's fussiest moments into giggles of delight. The couple had also begun introducing Archie to music, something both parents were passionate about. Harry would play guitar softly while Meghan sang lullabies, and they were amazed to discover that their son seemed to have definite musical preferences. He would become more animated during upbeat songs and would calm down immediately when they played softer melodies. Feeding time had become more complex as Archie began exploring solid foods. Meghan had chosen to prepare all of his meals herself, carefully selecting organic ingredients and creating combinations that would introduce him to different flavors and textures. The kitchen often looked like a small hurricane had passed through it, but the joy of watching Archie discover new tastes made the mess worthwhile. Harry had appointed himself as the official photographer of these feeding adventures. His camera was always ready to capture Archie's expressions as he encountered new foods for the first time. The refrigerator had become a gallery of photos showing everything from Archie's first taste of bananas to his surprised reaction to sweet potatoes. The baby's sleep patterns had stabilized, giving Harry and Meghan more predictable time together in the evenings. They had started a new tradition of taking turns reading to Archie before bedtime, introducing him to classic stories and children's books. Harry had begun creating his own stories, featuring a brave little prince who went on adventures with his elephant friend. Weekend mornings had become special occasions for extended family time. They would often spend hours in the garden, with Archie securely strapped to Harry's chest in his carrier. The baby seemed fascinated by the outdoor environment, his eyes tracking the movement of birds and his hands reaching toward colorful flowers. Meghan had started keeping a detailed journal of Archie's development, documenting his first laugh, his first attempts at sitting up, and the day he first reached for his father's face. These written records had become precious to her, a way of preserving memories that she knew would become increasingly important as time passed. The couple had also begun planning for Archie's first Christmas, though he would be too young to understand the significance of the holiday. They wanted to establish traditions that would become meaningful in the years to come. Harry had already started shopping for books they could read together, while Meghan researched recipes for homemade baby food that might become Christmas morning treats. Their approach to parenting had attracted attention from child development experts who praised their decision to prioritize Archie's emotional and intellectual growth over public appearances. The couple had received numerous offers for interviews and photo shoots, all of which they politely declined in favor of protecting their son's privacy. Archie's relationship with his extended family had also begun to develop. Video calls with Meghan's mother had become regular occurrences, and Doria would often spend hours making faces at her grandson through the computer screen. The baby had learned to recognize her voice and would become excited whenever he heard his grandmother speaking. The Queen had made several private visits to meet her newest great-grandchild, and even she had been charmed by Archie's developing personality. Harry had been moved to see his grandmother's gentle interactions with his son, recognizing that despite her formal public persona, she was genuinely delighted by the baby's presence. Bath time had evolved into an elaborate production involving multiple toys, special soaps, and carefully orchestrated routines designed to keep Archie entertained throughout the process. Harry had become an expert at creating soap bubble formations that captured Archie's attention, while Meghan had mastered the art of washing his hair without causing any distress. The couple had also begun taking Archie on short trips around the local area, carefully planned excursions that allowed them to introduce him to new environments while maintaining their privacy. These outings required extensive preparation and coordination, but seeing Archie's wonder at new sights and sounds made every effort worthwhile. Their home had truly become a haven where they could focus entirely on their growing family. Friends who visited commented on the peaceful atmosphere and the obvious contentment that radiated from all three family members. The cottage had been filled with laughter, music, and the constant sound of Archie's increasingly vocal communications with his parents. As autumn progressed toward winter, Harry and Meghan began making plans for the holiday season. They wanted to create magical experiences for Archie, even though he wouldn't remember his first Christmas. The planning itself had become a source of joy, as they imagined future holidays when Archie would be old enough to participate fully in their family traditions. Harry moved closer, kneeling beside the bassinet. "And your determination," he replied with a gentle smile, remembering how Archie had insisted on staying awake past his bedtime the night before, seemingly fascinated by the mobiles spinning above his crib. The little prince had inherited his mother's strong will along with his father's curious nature. The couple had made a conscious decision to keep their son's early months as private as possible. Unlike previous generations of royal children who were frequently photographed and appeared at public events, Archie was being raised with a different approach. Harry and Meghan wanted him to have the chance to develop his own personality without the immediate pressure of public expectations. As if sensing his parents' attention, Archie began to stir. His eyes, still the deep blue of newborns, opened slowly as he made soft cooing sounds. These were the moments that melted Harry's heart completely. The baby's innocent expressions and tiny movements reminded him of the simple joys he had sometimes forgotten in his royal duties. Meghan carefully lifted Archie from his bassinet, supporting his head with practiced ease. Despite being a first-time mother, she had developed natural instincts that amazed Harry daily. The way she could calm Archie with just her voice, or how she seemed to understand his different cries better than anyone else, showed her deep maternal connection. "Good morning, little love," she murmured against Archie's soft hair. The baby responded with what might have been his first real smile, though Harry insisted it was just gas. Meghan preferred to believe their son was already showing his charming personality, much like his father had been known to do from an early age. The nursery they had decorated was a perfect blend of their personalities. Meghan had chosen soft, calming colors with touches of African art that honored her heritage and Harry's love for the continent. Books lined one wall, already filled with stories they planned to read to Archie as he grew. Harry had insisted on including several volumes about wildlife conservation, hoping to instill his passion for protecting endangered species. Their daily walks around the grounds of Frogmore Cottage had become another cherished routine. Harry would carry Archie in a specially designed baby carrier, pointing out different birds and flowers as they strolled. Though the baby was too young to understand, Harry believed in talking to him constantly, sharing stories about the gardens, the history of the estate, and his hopes for Archie's future. Meghan would often bring her camera on these walks, capturing candid moments of Harry interacting with their son. She had always been passionate about photography, and now she had the most precious subject imaginable. The photos showed a side of Harry that the public rarely saw, completely relaxed, genuinely happy, and totally absorbed in fatherhood. The couple had also begun establishing small traditions. Every evening, Harry would read to Archie from classic children's books, his voice taking on different characters and tones that never failed to capture the baby's attention. Meghan would often join them, adding her own commentary and making Archie giggle with funny faces and gentle tickles. Mealtimes had become family affairs, even though Archie was still exclusively breastfeeding. Meghan and Harry would take turns holding him while the other ate, sharing stories about their day and making plans for the weekend. They had discovered that Archie seemed to enjoy the sound of their conversations, often becoming more alert and responsive when they spoke to each other. The nursery walls were adorned with photographs from their travels before Archie's birth, and they would often tell him stories about the places they had visited together. Harry would describe the elephants they had seen in Botswana, while Meghan would talk about the children they had met during their humanitarian work. These stories were laying the foundation for the values they hoped to instill in their son. Bath time had evolved into one of their most enjoyable routines. Archie had initially been uncertain about the water, but, with patient encouragement from both parents, he had learned to love his evening baths. Harry had become an expert at maintaining the perfect water temperature, while Meghan had mastered the art of keeping Archie calm and happy throughout the process. The couple often marveled at how much their lives had changed since Archie's arrival. Their priorities had shifted completely, and decisions that once seemed important now paled in comparison to their son's well-being and happiness. They had discovered a new kind of love that was deeper and more profound than anything they had experienced before. Friends and family members who visited were struck by the transformation in both Harry and Meghan. The stress and pressure they had felt during the final months of pregnancy had been replaced by a contentment and purpose that radiated from both of them. Archie had brought them a peace they had been seeking for years. As the weeks passed, they began to notice Archie's developing personality. He seemed to prefer certain lullabies over others, responded more positively to specific toys, and had already shown a particular fondness for the rocking chair in his nursery. These small preferences delighted his parents, who saw each new development as evidence of his growing individuality.